Have you ever wondered why your favorite game title, despite being announced years ago, still hasn't been released? It receives delay after delay after delay, and in some cases, it just goes radio silent. When this happens, it leads to there being a lot of frustration within the community, but it doesn't shine light on what's really going on. So in today's video, we are going to be going from start to finish, highlighting the full development process. Game production is the series of steps involved in creating a video game, from the initial concept to its final release to the public. This pipeline is designed to help plan out the budget and duration, as well as prevent obstacles as soon as the project starts. The iterative nature of game development means that multiple rounds of revisions and tests may be required to refine the game and ensure that it meets the expectation of the development team and the players. The pipeline helps manage this process and ensures that each step is reviewed and approved before moving forward. This pipeline has been tested and proven to be effective, but it also allows for some flexibility as every project and team is unique. Typically, prior to initiating a project, the creative lead provides a design brief to the design team that articulates a clear vision for a new game. The creative, narrative, art, and engineering director gather up for meetings and they decide on a new idea. How they come up with this idea? Well, there isn't really a set answer with this. Each game developer and game studio is different. They might be inspired by another game, a movie, a motion, or a feeling. With their vast experience, they usually have a good feel for what could be successful and popular. These briefs commonly incorporate various elements like the overall player experience, genre, brief story structure, artistic vision, and intended player emotions. A typical game brief often centers around the message that the game aims to communicate, much like the case of God of War 2018. During the development of the game, the creative director Cory Barlog conceived the notion of game pillars. In the God of War case, there were 3 pillars: combat, narrative, and exploration. They required the team to make crucial decisions that would either enhance or complete these 3 elements. These beliefs established the foundational principles of the game and provided the team with a comprehensive understanding of the game's core objectives and vision. From there, we move on to pre-production. Pre-production usually requires the most imaginative thinking. During this phase, designers work on creating basic concepts and preparing design documents that outline the game's future. Therefore, it is crucial to constantly evaluate the decisions being made, such as whether a new mechanic is enjoyable, fits with the game's context, and is balanced and user-friendly. Programmers, on the other hand, evaluate various pipeline and tools that will enhance and improve the project's development. Artists will start creating concepts of the game world, enemies, characters, and in some cases, abilities to help with the visualization and the fleshing out of ideas. The addition of the pre-production phase can simplify the development process and reduce the overall production time, as it could showcase potential limitations way before they even emerge. That's when this can move on to prototyping. Now, with prototyping, it could also be one of the very first steps. Each game studio and game designer is different, as we mentioned earlier. For some, they will start their process by just playing about within a game engine, seeing what they can create and what is fun. As soon as they find something fun, they expand upon it. A good example of this is Angry Birds. Angry Birds was never planned right at the beginning. At first, it was just an artist doodling and came up with these characters. The rest of the team saw exactly what he created and liked the idea of using birds without legs or wings. So they had to go and find a new way in which they can move them from point A to point B. And that's where they came up with the slingshot mechanic. But for other more established studios, this is where they'll do their prototyping. The team not only will test the functionality of the game's core mechanics, but also explores the potential for modifications or improvements that could enhance the overall gaming experience. It is worth noting that game development prototyping involves designing and testing core concepts on paper, as well as within game engines. And with both, it's constant iteration. You'll come up with an idea, test it, see how it works. Is it fun? Yes. Okay, how can we make this even more fun? If it's not fun, let's figure out why, or we can just completely remove it. Once prototyping is complete, video game development typically shifts towards a more polished stage where the core design and mechanics are established early on. It's important to note that some ideas that seem excellent on paper or theory may not be as effective when translated into a digital 3D format. By committing to prototyping early on, developers can determine the fun factor of the game's core pillars and also what technology it will require. After finalizing a concept, designers will shift their focus towards crafting a comprehensive design document, which will serve as a point of reference for the entire development process. This document will encompass every detail and facet of the game, such as its thorough list of gameplay mechanics and elements, along with detailed descriptions. It might also include the game's narrative structure, some of the characters, and even the projected development timeline and milestones that could be presented to publishers. The design document serves as a valuable tool for onboarding new team members and pitching the game to potential investors. And this is an ever-evolving document. It is updated throughout the development cycle and reflect any changes, additions, or modifications to the overall project. Upon completion of all elements, the project can move into the production phase, where this is typically the lengthiest part of development, sometimes spanning multiple years. During this stage, developers devote their time and effort into finalizing all game components, including the game world, 3D models, sound, and other details to ensure the game is polished and ready for release. But even then, this is broken down into separate milestones. The first major milestone during the production phase is the vertical slice. The game should have a short but nearly complete amount of content that provides players with a glimpse of what the finished game could be. This is a great opportunity not just to hand a design document to potential publishers and investors, but give them a hands-on experience. In some cases, especially when looking at AAA, game studios will actually use this vertical slice as advertisement. We saw this in the likes of Cyberpunk 2077. Following the vertical slice is the pre-alpha stage. This is where the majority of the game's content is developed. This phase is crucial because it often involves making significant decisions about what to keep, cut, or revise to improve the gameplay experience. When a game reaches the alpha milestone, it is considered featured complete. This means all main elements have been incorporated, and a game can be played from beginning to end with UI and functionality working properly, although 3D assets as well as maybe various bugs will still be part of the game. Any type of animations will not be included, but this gives the ability for QA testers to now play through the game, figure out the flaws, and detail improvements into their own separate document, which will be handed back up to designers. This can now be moved on to the beta phase. During the beta phase, the development team's focus shifts from adding new functions or features to integrating all the game's content and assets and optimizing its performance. The primary goal during this stage is to identify and fix any bugs or issues that may hinder the game's overall experience. At this point, the development team should prioritize fixing critical bugs that may cause the game to crash or significantly impact gameplay. As the game is now somewhat complete, the team may also seek feedback from beta testers to gather insight into how the game performs and identify any areas that may need further improvement before the game's official release. Now, we did mention earlier that QA testers will go through this, and they will more or less go through the game trying to find as many problems as possible. But typically, QA testers are playing for a different reason than players, and players will come across something which no one ever expected to find. When the game is deemed complete, it reaches the Gold Master stage. At this point, the final build of the game is produced, and all aspects of the game have been finalized, including bug fixing, polishing, and optimization. The game is ready to be sent to publishing platforms for distribution, either through online distribution channels or as physical copies. The game is now ready for release. But the process of development doesn't stop there. Even though QA will find the majority of the bugs and address them to get them fixed. And after this, beta testers will also stumble across other game-breaking issues and they will submit their feedback and they will get fixed. There will still be issues. There is just no way for you to release a perfect game that has no problems. There will always be something. And that's where the work begins on the very first patch. But whilst this is going, dependent on the type of studio that you're working for, if indie, that may be your main priority right now, but with larger studios, there will also be another team that's potentially working on downloadable content. And with downloadable content, even though it's still part of the exact same game, you do more or less go through this whole process again, but on a smaller scale. You don't need to worry too much about the core gameplay mechanics because they've already been developed, but it's now how you can use those exact same mechanics in a different way, so it doesn't get repetitive and boring for the player. You still want them to be fun, and you want to create an experience which is an extension of what was there before or something completely different. And whilst this is happening, typically higher ups and team leaders, they will go through a post-mortem, which is essentially a production overview that evaluates what went well with the development and what didn't. It ensures that the next projects can be executed more effectively. And that brings us to the end of production. Ready for game studios to start this all over again with a different title or potentially a sequel. Now, it is worth highlighting that this is very generalized. There are some studios which follow this exactly, whereas others, they've got their own methods in place. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you want to see a bit more from us, then I highly recommend clicking the video on screen. That video will show you exactly how to be a game designer. After watching this video, you already know the production from start to finish. Now it's about leading the team. So click that video and we'll share everything that you need to know.